Hello everyone. Today in this video I will tell you the details of nephrotic syndrome. So learning objectives for today's lecture are: how will you define the nephrotic syndrome, etiology, pathophysiology of the NS, various clinical manifestation, and how will you investigate and differential diagnosis of the NS, then how will you treat, this is the most important part, then the complication in NS. So to define the nephrotic syndrome, if the child is having the heavy proteinuria, this is the massive selective proteinuria, when the urine protein is more than 40 milligram per meter square per hour or more than 1 gram per meter square per day, which will lead to the hypoalbuminemia. Serum albumin level is less than 2.5 gram per dl, and this will lead to the edema. So in this picture you can see the child is having the periorbital swelling, which start from the periorbital area then progress to the lower part of the body, and this is pitting edema with hyperlipidemia when serum cholesterol is more than 250 milligram per dl. This is always present in the nephrotic syndrome. So these are the four criteria to label the child is suffering from nephrotic syndrome. Now the etiology of nephrotic syndrome. It is either primary or idiopathic nephrotic syndrome, which is the most common, or it can be secondary nephrotic syndrome, or it can be congenital nephrotic syndrome. So mainly it is primary nephrotic syndrome, which is present in the 90% cases, and in this minimal change disease is the most common variety, which is present in 85% cases. Rarely significant glomerular histological lesion, example mesangial proliferation or focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, which is present hardly in 5 to 10% cases. And sometime after some infection or autoimmune disorder or allergic or after some drugs, patient can develop the secondary nephrotic syndrome in 10% cases. So in this, hepatitis B virus, C virus, or HIV, malaria, or TOJ group of infection can lead to the secondary nephrotic syndrome. In autoimmune disorder, SLE, HSP, amyloidosis can lead to the secondary nephrotic syndrome. Even after some food allergy or bee sting, this can develop. And after some drug injection, example NSAID, penicillamine, lithium, gold, can lead to the secondary nephrotic syndrome. If the infant less than 3 months of the age is presented with the all characteristic of nephrotic syndrome, example heavy proteinuria with the hypoalbuminemia with the edema with hypercholesterolemia, we can label as a congenital nephrotic syndrome. So in this picture you can see the 2 months old infant is having the generalized swelling of the whole body. This is anasarca, and this child is suffering from congenital nephrotic syndrome. In congenital nephrotic syndrome, Finnish type variety is the most common form of the congenital nephrotic syndrome. Rarely diffuse mesangial sclerosis, Danish dress syndrome, or even after some congenital infection which is acquired during the pregnancy can affect the infant. So these are the TOJ group of infection or hepatitis B virus infection can lead to the congenital nephrotic syndrome in infant. Now the pathophysiology of the nephrotic syndrome. It is due to increased glomerular capillary wall permeability for the protein, and in minimal chain disease it is because of the damage of the podocyte. Due to the loss of negatively charged glycoprotein in MCD, minimal chain disease, or it can be due to the mutation in podocyte protein, example podocin or alpha-actinin 4 in the FSGS. In non-minimal change disease, example mesangial proliferation or focal segmental glomerulosclerosis. This can lead to the heavy proteinuria. So patient will have the massive proteinuria and it will lead to the hypoalbuminemia. So albumin level will be less than 2.5 gram per dl, and it will stimulate the hepatic protein including the lipoprotein and also the lipid synthesis. So protein and lipid synthesis will be increased in the liver. So the levels of lipids will be increased. So triglyceride and cholesterol level will be increased. That's why in nephrotic syndrome, patient is having the characteristic hyperlipidemia, and hypercholesterolemia is almost always present in the nephrotic syndrome, and this is very characteristic. We can easily differentiate the nephritis syndrome from the nephrotic because the clinical presentation can be same in nephritis and nephrotic, except hypertension and hematuria is the characteristic of nephritis, not the nephrotic, but it can be really present even in the nephrotic. So hyperlipidemia, hypercholesterolemia is only present in nephrotic, not in nephritis. Hypoalbuminemia also lead to the decreased plasma oncotic pressure, and fluid moves from intravascular space to the interstitial space, and this will causes the edema and hypovolemia. And due to hypovolemia, renal perfusion is renal perfusion pressure is decreased and GFR will be decreased, and it will stimulate the ADH and aldosterone secretion, and it will lead to the water and sodium retention, and it will again precipitate the edema. So this is the pathophysiology of nephrotic syndrome. Now the clinical manifestations of idiopathic nephrotic syndrome, minimal change disease. It is commonly present between the 2 to 6 years of the age group, and in this male to female ratio is 2:1, so it is more common in the male child. Now in this picture you can see the child is having the periorbital edema and facial puffiness. So in nephrotic syndrome, edema start around the eyes in periorbital area, and there will be the characteristic history that child is having the periorbital swelling in the morning time and it regresses in the daytime, and later on child will have the facial puffiness, then it can progress over the extremities. So in this picture you can see that child is having the pitting edema over the lower limb, and then it can progress to the genitals. So in this picture you can see the child is having the scrotal swelling, and this is again characteristic of the nephrotic syndrome. In other condition in which the child is having the swelling of the whole body, example if the child is suffering from the cardiac disorder, liver disorder, this genital swelling will not be there. So if the child is having the swelling of the genital area, then you should rule out the nephrotic syndrome. This is not seen in the other differential causes of the swelling. And if not treated at that time, then child can develop the pleural effusion and ascites also. So generalized anasarca can develop. Some non-specific clinical manifestation can also be there. Child will have the fatigue, lethargy will be there, anorexia, irritability will be there, and nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, and diarrhea can also be there. And body weight increases due to the edema of the body, and urine output can be decreased in nephrotic syndrome, but it is a rare finding. And due to the pleural effusion, child can have the difficulty in breathing, and occasionally hypertension and gross hematuria can be there, but hypertension and hematuria is very rarely seen in the minimal change disease. If it is present, then you have to rule out the non-minimal change nephrotic syndrome, or it can be due to some secondary causes. Now how will you investigate nephrotic patient? So first you have to go for the urine analysis, then perform the blood test, then some other tests can also be performed. Now in urine analysis, proteinuria will be there, 3 plus or 4 plus protein by heat or dipstick test for 3 consecutive days is characteristic of NS. In 24 hours, urine test for the protein excretion. If it is more than 40 mg per meter square per hour or more than 1 gram per meter square per day, then it is characteristic. We can perform the spot test also, in which the urine protein and create ratio, if it is more than 2, then it is characteristic of NS. Normally it is less than 0.2. If it is between 0.2 to 2, then we have to rule out the other causes of proteinuria. And if it is more than 2, it is characteristic of nephrotic syndrome. Rarely, microscopic hematuria can be seen in 20% cases. In this, you will find that RBCs are present in the urine examination. We should rule out the urinary tract infection because UTI can precipitate the nephrotic syndrome, and even in UTI also, proteinuria can be present transiently. So by urine culture and sensitivity, we have to exclude the UTI. In blood test, in serum protein levels will show that total serum protein is less than 5.5 gram per dl and serum albumin level is less than 2.5 gram per dl, and serum cholesterol will be high because of hyperlipidemia. It is more than 250 milligram per dl, which is characteristic of NS. In serum electrolyte, you will find that hyponatremia is there. Sodium level is less than 135 milliequivalent per liter, but it is due to hyperlipidemia. We label as a pseudo hyponatremia, or it can be due to dilutional hyponatremia because of retention of water. In nephrotic syndrome, due to ADS secretion can lead to the hyponatremia. Really, raised urea creatinine level can be seen if the child is having massive edema with the oliguria, but it is not commonly present in the minimal change disease. ESR can be elevated in active phase. Complement levels C3, C4 normal in the minimal change nephrotic syndrome. Rarely it can be altered in non-minimal disease. Other investigations in which X-ray and Montauk trace should be done before starting the treatment to rule out the tuberculosis. USG QB should be performed to rule out any gross malformation in the kidney. Renal biopsy is not routinely indicated in nephrotic syndrome. It is indicated only if the onset of nephrotic syndrome in less than 1 year or more than 8 years age group, when non-minimal nephrotic syndrome is common. When the child is having gross or persistent hematuria or hypertension, if child is having the renal insufficiency, altered renal function test, and due to secondary causes, if frequent relapsing nephrotic syndrome, and in steroid resistant nephrotic syndrome, and if the complements levels are low. So in all these conditions we have to perform the renal biopsy. Otherwise renal biopsy is not indicated in primary idiopathic nephrotic syndrome. Now the treatment of nephrotic syndrome in the supportive and specific treatment. In supportive treatment, we have to give the low salt and high protein diet. Salt should be restricted less than 2 gram per day. And diuretic is indicated when the child is having the massive edema. In this, oral furosemide 2 to 8 milligram per kilogram per day divided in 3 or 4 doses. It is more appropriate than the injectable Lasix, or we can give the hydrochlorothiazide metolazone. Dose is 1 to 3 milligram per kilogram per day of the thiazide, and metolazone can be 0.1 to 0.5 milligram per kilogram per day. It is indicated with the furosemide in massive edema, and spironolactone should be added to prevent the hypokalemia, 1 to 3 milligram per kilogram per day. We can give the 20% salt-free albumin 0.5 gram per kilogram over a period of 1 to 2 hours when the child is having the massive edema due to severe hypoalbuminemia. Albumin level is less than 1 gram per dl with the hypovolemia, and it should be followed by furosemide 1 to 2 milligram per kilogram injectable at the end of albumin infusion. ACE inhibitors are indicated enalapril and ramipril in the non-minimal nephrotic syndrome. In a specific treatment for the nephrotic syndrome, I will tell you the details of initial therapy in nephrotic syndrome, which we have to start in each and every case when diagnosed first, and then treatment of infrequent and frequent relapse nephrotic syndrome. Then how will you treat the steroid dependent nephrotic syndrome, and how will you treat the steroid resistant nephrotic syndrome. So in initial therapy, we have to start the prednisolone 2 mg per kilogram per day, which is divided into 2 or 3 doses for 6 weeks, and it should be followed by 1.5 mg per kilogram alternate day single morning dose for next 6 weeks. So total duration is 3 months for the initial therapy with prednisolone. And most of the patient respond by end of second week of the prednisolone. We label as a early responder, but rarely some patient respond after 4 to 6 weeks of prednisolone therapy. We label as a late responders, and few patients do not respond to the prednisolone therapy even after 8 weeks of the continuous prednisolone. We label as a steroid resistant nephrotic syndrome. According to the response to the initial therapy with the prednisolone, there are few terminology. We label as a remission when the child is having no edema and urine is protein free for 3 consecutive days. Urine protein is either negative or trace 1 plus or less than 4 mg per meter square per hour. Then we can label the child is having remission phase. Relapse when the child is having again appearance of the edema or first morning urine sample contains 3 plus or 4 plus protein for continuous 3 days. Then we can label the child is having relapse of nephrotic syndrome. If the child is having less than 3 relapses in a year, we label as a infrequent relapser. If the child is having more than 4 relapses in a year or more than 2 relapses in a 6-month period, we label as a frequent relapser. And if the child is having occurrence of 2 consecutive relapses during alternate day prednisolone therapy or within 14 days of stopping prednisolone therapy, we label as a steroid dependent nephrotic syndrome patients. Now the treatment of infrequent relapse. 20 to 40% patients of the nephrotic syndrome are having the infrequent relapses. So in this we have to start the prednisolone 2 mg per kilogram per day divided into twice or thrice doses until urine protein is negative or trace for the 3 consecutive days. Means that when the child is having remission, we can convert the continuous prednisolone therapy into the alternate day therapy. It generally take the 14 days to get the remission, and after that we have to start the 1.5 mg per kilogram alternate day prednisolone single morning dose for next 4 weeks. So it is total duration is around 6 to 8 weeks for the infrequent relapse patients. Now the treatment of frequent relapse and steroid dependent nephrotic syndrome. In 30 to 40% patients of the nephrotic syndrome, frequent relapses are present, and in hardly 20% cases, steroid dependency is seen. So I will tell you the steps of treatments in this slides. First step is we have to start the alternate day single dose prednisolone at the 1.5 mg per kilogram. Then we have to taper slowly till the 0.25 to 0.5 milligram per kilogram, and it should be continued for 9 to 12 months. If not responded to this, then second step is we have to start the levamisole. It is immunomodulator and dose is 2 to 2.5 milligram per kilogram alternate day. It should be continued for 2 years and it should be started after getting the remission with the prednisolone. And with this, initially we have to give the alternate day single dose prednisolone 0.75 to 1 milligram per kilogram for few weeks. Then gradually we have to taper and then stop by 3 to 6 months, and levamisole will be continue for 1 to 2 years. But after stopping the levamisole, relapses are very common, very frequent, and side effects are very less with the levamisole, but the relapses are frequent after stopping the levamisole. If child is not responded to the prednisolone and levamisole, then we can start the cyclophosphamide. Side effects are more with the cyclophosphamide, but after completing the 3 months course of the cyclophosphamide, child may get the complete cure also, or sometime infrequent relapse can be seen. So it is otherwise a good drug, but we have to monitor for the side effects. Every month we have to perform the complete blood count, so to see the child is developing the leukopenia or not. And even the child can develop the hemorrhagic cystitis or gonadal toxicity can be seen in male child in adolescent period, and even infertility can be there, but it reverses after stopping the drug. So we have to monitor for the side effect. Dose for the cyclophosphamide is 2 to 2.5 mg per kilogram per day. It should be continued for 3 months with the alternate day single dose prednisolone 1 to 1.5 mg per kilogram for 12 weeks. If child is not responded to this, then fourth step is we can start the chlorambucil, and it also causes the leukopenia. Dose is 0.2 to 0.3 mg per kilogram per day for 12 weeks with the alternate day signal dose prednisolone 1 mg per kilogram for 12 weeks. If child is not responded to the prednisolone, levamisole, cyclophosphamide, chlorambucil, then fifth step is we have to start the cyclosporin. And the side effects are more with the cyclosporin. It is nephrotoxic also, and it also causes the leukopenia. So we have to monitor the baby every month by doing the CBC, and if it is showing that less than 4000 WBC count, then we have to stop the cyclosporin. And the dose of the cyclosporin is 4 to 5 mg per kilogram per day divided in BD doses for 1 year. It should be continued with the alternate day prednisolone 1 mg per kilogram for 12 weeks. If not responded to this also, then we can give the mycophenolate mofetil, and dose is 20 to 25 mg per kilogram per day divided in 2 doses for 1 to 2 years with the tapering dose of prednisolone. If child is not responding to this also, then we can give the tacrolimus 0.15 mg per kilogram per day divided in BD doses for 2 years. It is also the toxic drug, so we have to monitor very carefully, and with the alternate day prednisolone, and it should be tapered, and then we have to stop. But tacrolimus should be continued at least for 2 years to get the remission. And if not responded to tacrolimus, then we can give the rituximab, monoclonal anti-CD20 antibody. It is very effective. Dose is 375 mg per meter square per week. Injectable should be given for 4 weeks at least. So this is the treatment of frequent relapse nephrotic syndrome and steroid dependent nephrotic syndrome. Now, steroid resistant nephrotic syndrome. It is rarely seen, hardly in less than 10% cases. In this, we have to start the cyclophosphamide orally 2 to 2.5 mg per kilogram per day for 3 months with the alternate day prednisolone therapy. If child is not responding to this, then we can give the injectable methylprednisolone 30 mg per kilogram pulse therapy on alternate day. Total 3 to 6 doses in steroid resistant nephrotic syndrome. And if you are labeling refractory SRNS, child is even not responding to the cyclophosphamide and methylpred's pulse therapy, then we can continue the methylprednisolone once a week for next 8 weeks, then twice a month for next 2 months, then once in a month for next 6 to 12 months. Few patients respond to this therapy, so we can try this also in refractory SRNS. It should be followed by alternate day single dose prednisolone 1.5 mg per kilogram. Then it should be tapered up to 0.25 mg per kilogram, and it should be continued for next 4 to 12 months. If child has not responded to oral cyclophosphamide and methylpredate pulse therapy, then we can give injectable cyclophosphamide 500 mg per meter square per dose every month, injectable for 6 months. But we have to monitor for the side effects. If not responded to this, then we have to start the cyclosporin, same dose as said previously. Then if not responded to cyclosporin also, then we have to start the tacrolimus, similar dose as in previous. And if not responded, then we can give the rituximab, and it is a good drug for the steroid resistant nephrotic syndrome. So tacrolimus and rituximab is the good options for the steroid resistant nephrotic syndrome, those who have not responded even to the cyclophosphamide and pulse methylprednisolone therapy and cyclosporin. Before labeling the nephrotic syndrome, we should rule out the glomerulonephritis, in which the persistent hypertension and hematuria with the decreased complement level, and in streptococcal glomerulonephritis you will find that ASO titer is raised and evidence of a streptococcal infection can be there. We should rule out the angioedema if there is a history of allergy or some animal bites. Protein losing enteropathy, kwashiorkor should also be ruled out before labeling the nephrotic syndrome. Even in congestive cardiac failure, child will have the generalized anasarca, but in this swelling will start from the lower limbs, then progress upward. In liver failure also altered hepatic functions will be there, so we can easily differentiate. Now the complication in nephrotic syndrome, child can develop the infection because of the less immunity, because child is already on prednisolone therapy, and also the protective immunoglobulins are lost in the urine. So child can develop the commonly upper respiratory tract infection, peritonitis, cellulitis, urinary tract infection can develop. Common organisms are encapsulated pneumococci, which is most common. That's why we have to vaccinate the baby for the pneumococci by giving the pneumococcal vaccine. And another H. influenzae gram-negative bacilli, example E. coli, Klebsiella, can also lead to the infection in nephrotic syndrome child. So we should vaccinate for the pneumococcus and H. influenzae always. Another complication is hypercoagulability because of the antithrombin 3 is lost in the urine in nephrotic syndrome. It will lead to the venous and arterial thrombosis formation. So in this picture you can see the child is having the venous thrombosis. Child can develop the renal failure, either pre-renal or renal. Cardiovascular disease can also be developed because child is having hyperlipidemia and nephrotic syndrome, and it is a risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Hypovolemic shock can also develop because child is having the hypoalbuminemia. Growth retardation can be there. Malnutrition can develop. Adrenal cortical insufficiency can also develop, and child can also have the side effects of steroid. So all these are the complications in nephrotic syndrome. Thank you. If you are having any query, you can put into comment box. Thank you.